After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, the Italian game is on the board. Expect a very passionate and dramatic game because of that. Black goes on with f5. In this video, we're gonna see what happens after pawn takes in f5. We've seen something like this in one of the previous videos of this saga. However, after the move e4, previously we went through two main ideas. Bishop taking our knight or queen e2, pinning the pawn, and everything that happens next. In this video, we're gonna go through a crazy line, which is knight to d4. Before we do that, let's go through another even crazier line, knight to g5 now. What happens now? This knight is attacking f7, trying to make a fork to the rook and the queen. So what to do now? Here now you're going to have to learn an incredibly difficult sequence of moves that leads you to get a winning advantage. Queen takes knight for free. So just one move ago, jokes apart, White's crazy move could have been knight to d4. I've seen this move once in a blitz game, which I actually lost. And by the way, the guy was cheating. I found out one day later when his account was closed. But then I realized that I had to study this move because the engine played it, not him, because he was too much of an idiot to actually play this move himself. Basically, if you take the knight here, you run into queen h5. This is really dangerous. The pawn is attacking g6. So you're kind of forced to play king e7, but then queen f7. It's a disaster. You don't want to end up playing a game like this. In this position, after knight to d4, knight to f6 comes. This is your best move. It stops queen h5 ideas, because you could take it. Now, this knight cannot really be defended properly in any possible way. You're threatening to take it for free. And either way, either the knight goes back to d3, b3, you're still going to play d5, and you're going to get a very strong center. The bishop will take back in f5, so this is just worse for white. Okay, the white player shouldn't have taken in f5 in the first place. So in this position, let's look at this move. Knight takes knight in c6. Okay, we take back with the b pawn because we want to have a possibility to play d5. When the opponent bishop is in c4, not only it's a good square for the bishop, and so you need to play d5 to stop the influence of the bishop, but also d5 is also good because it allows you to be able to castle. So after castle, d5, bishop to e2, now you can recapture the pawn in f5. And look at the center, it belongs entirely to black. You wouldn't look at this game and think that white has been playing well because everything belongs to the black player. After d4 now, how to respond to this? Of course, we don't take en passant. Remember this structure. You want to keep it like that. You have more control over central squares. All of these squares are controlled by you, so why would you give it up? How do we respond to this threat? Now, we've seen in previous videos how knight to c3 is completely useless. It's such a bad move in this type of setup. So let's look at c4, the idea of take, and then knight c3 not blocking the c pawn. Let's see, castle, and after knight c3, rook to b8. Prevented the development of this bishop, otherwise we will take in b2. So after pawn takes and pawn takes back, and queen to a4, this is white playing best moves to try and get some activity, because you see the control over the center here just stops white from being able to do anything. This knight cannot go anywhere that makes sense. Maybe knight to b5, but as a matter of fact, let me make an example. Instead of queen a4, if white plays knight to b5 already, that's a stupid move. You just play c6. The knight will have to go back. The pawn in a7 is poisoned because you play queen c7, the knight is trapped. At this point, after queen a4, black plays bishop to d6, beginning to put pressure on h2. So this is a much better position for black already. To prove my point, let's see what happens after the queen simply takes the pawn in a7. Now, the pawn is not poisoned here because even if you play rook a8, queen b7, and then you attack the queen again with the rook, but then queen a6, maybe queen b5, queen b3, the queen will have an escape. This is just a free pawn, but like try to understand what the plan is that you're going to be going for in this position. So after queen takes pawn in a7, knight to g4. And here you're winning. Just completely game over. You're applying pressure on h2. What happens if h3 attacking the knight? Well, knight to h2 should win the exchange, should win the rook. If the rook moves, then queen to h4. And now the idea obviously is to sacrifice the bishop in h3, then you will have an attack on f2 with the queen. You also have idea of queen to h3. You will be completely unbothered. You could do anything you want in such position. All of your pieces are aiming that side. The other rook can come as well afterwards. It's already a point of no return for white. So in this position after knight to g4, what happens if the knight is eliminated by the board? Bishop takes. Okay, bishop takes back. And now you're planning to play queen h4 anyway. What happens if h3 attacking the bishop? Let me illustrate my point. in a more visual way. Okay, bishop takes. Do you see it now? You understand the concept of being so well developed and so much better developed and having so much more control over the center than your opponent that you can afford to sacrifice pieces to open the files. Pawn takes the bishop in h3, queen h4 comes now. There's nothing to do, even white playing the best moves, king to g2 for instance. Black now plays rook b to e8 very quietly. The ideas would be rook e6 and then come with the rook in some sort of lawnmower attempt when the king will move you taking h3 with checkmate. This queen is cut off the game. She can't play. Bishop e3, best moves, applying more defense over the pawn in f2. Rook f3 comes now. And the idea is queen takes h3. After rook to h1, protecting that pawn, this rook comes to f8. And now we're threatening to simply sacrifice the rook. We got enough attack over the square f2 for a checkmate in 2 moves. So after the rook goes to f1 to protect that further, then this doesn't work. Rook g3 check. If king moves to h2, you got checkmate. If pawn takes, then queen g3 is checkmate. And in this position, instead of rook a to f1 to defend the pawn, even if knight takes e4 sacrifice, just to make an example, right here, don't be fooled. Just take the knight with the threat of discover check, completely winning as well. So in this position, after the knight g4 move, bishop takes doesn't work, pawn to h3 doesn't work. What happens after g3? Stopping the influence of this bishop over h2? Well, doesn't matter. Knight to h2 anyway. King takes, and now queen to h4 check. The pawn in g3 is pinned. So after king to g1, well, king to g2 will be running into the queen having access, the queen and the bishop having access to h3 together. But still, doesn't make much difference. Black plays bishop to g3, pawn takes, queen takes with check, king to h1, queen check, king to g1, bishop to h3 comes now. The idea is queen g3 and then checkmate in g2. And this is unstoppable. If white plays queen to c7, stopping queen c3 idea from happening, then simply win the exchange. But it's actually more than the exchange, because now you freed up the f2 square anyway. So regardless of what white will try to do now, you're completely winning. If bishop takes back, then queen to f2, king to h1, you take the bishop, and then the infiltration of the rooks is coming. You're down in material now, but you're winning by checkmate very soon.